Hey everyone, this week's hot rod topic is a good one. It's called Haulin gas. Follow along in a two-part update this week plus next week, where I talk about relocating a fuel tank into the back of my 56 F100 rat rod truck. First week, I'll focus on framework and getting it set up so that I can mount it into the frame. And then the second week will be about breaking it down a little bit further in terms of how I bolted it into place using some nut certs and kind of did some finish work. Let me give you a sneak peek of what the finished product looks like. There you go. Mounted behind the axle for better weight distribution and definitely safer than keeping it in the cab where it was from the factory standpoint. Plus, this 71 Ford Mustang Mach 1 tank actually holds about 21 gallons, if I'm not mistaken. I need to double check that. But increased capacity and better weight distribution. Hope you enjoy.
I'm going to build a frame that goes around that fuel tank out of this 1-inch square tubing. And I'm going to try to get it as close to this outside edge of the tank as possible so it's a smoother transition. So we'll see how well my welds and my fabrication skills come in. So I'll do a square frame around this, and then it will be mounted upside, or flip it up in order for mounting inside of the back of the truck. So I've cut my pieces of 1x1 rectangular tubing for the frame. And I've got it kind of laid up so I can make templates. So, for example, this bottom edge, one right here, or bottom one, I'll just make a little scribe around that of the general shape and make sure it's cut for this side. Trim it out with a 4.5-inch flap wheel, one of those. So I'll trim out the 45-degree angles with that. But then I'm also going to drill some holes through the square tubing to bolt the tank actually to the metal part of the frame before I do any of the seams on the corners to try to help make it stay square as much as possible. So we'll see how well I do, if it happens or not. Who knows? If not, I guarantee you I can figure a way to solve it and work around it. Okay, I've got 3 sides of this frame more than rough cut. I got it set up and kind of adjusted, doing some trim cuts so that I've got decent gaps down here and kind of clean around the edges on these 2 corners. And I'll spot weld, get a good weld on there, probably a full weld as much as I can, most likely across the top and maybe down the bottom or down the side. And then I'll do the adjustment on the 4th piece, since everything down here will be square. Okay, got the welding in. There's an important lesson though. I kind of got started just as quick as I could, just to kind of get going. I didn't quite have my technique worked out yet, where I was pulsing on the latter part of the welds. I did better when I was remembering I need to actually pulse the weld instead of just running a straight bead. So I'll clean that up with a grinder here pretty quick. But here's the other corner, kind of with the pulsing approach. A whole lot cleaner weld. Still, unfortunately, I got to clean some up, but that's kind of the nature of it. And then I will trim the 4th corner to fit against all of this. Okay, 4th piece is trimmed. It's not the best gaps. I just kind of want to show that I do have a fair amount of space to kind of fill up with this MIG welder, but I think I can do it and make it look decent. Unfortunately, down that backside, it's not a great, good, clean cut. But we'll see what it comes out in the end after all the grinding. Even, yeah, look at that grab. I've got a pretty good sized one there. But we'll see what I can do. Maybe I can trim it out. Okay. All 4 corners have been welded, at least half of the seam. The bottom edge and the front edge. The whole tank has been tack welded to the frame. And a few spots around here too. Those gaps were nasty. Those gaps were definitely nasty. Look at these. Top filled in really well. Had to build up a lot on this little downward side. But considering how much of an angle this needs to be rounded to, I think it'll be good enough that I can grind it down. All right, this one looks nasty as can be. This is one of the first ones, or the biggest one, I should say. Yeah, this one's definitely nasty. This is one of the biggest gaps I had to fill, and I'm not sure how well it came out underneath all of that. But again, built up a lot in the middle, and I'll grind what I can, and then whenever I pop the tank off again, I can fill in the rest. Should be good. All right, I just got done dressing the welds with the flap wheel, and a lot of subtleties in terms of trying to keep it flat across both sides. I'm going slow to take the welds down, but I think they came out all right. In fact, even some of those big gap areas on the corners filled in, even though the weld looked ugly. They did round out kind of in a decent shape. So for the most part, they're good the way they are, but I'm probably going to end up taking a little hand file, kind of shaping the last little bit around those corners, just taking all the deburring, or doing all the deburring, and just kind of giving a flat finish to everything. But it came out all right. All right, here we are. We've got the gas tank kind of temporarily mocked up inside those frame rails. I've got it measured evenly between those. And what I'm doing is building a mount system using these square tubings. And I'll have one in each corner that goes down. But ultimately, I'm going to only mock those little uprights in place to the frame that I have on the tank. Then I'm going to lift the whole thing, including those mounting brackets, up to the height that I want for the gas tank to ride at. And then I'll weld those to the frame rails. So to give you a sense of what that looks like underneath here, let me show you how they're mocked up right now. Up underneath there, and there's a square tubing frame that runs around the bottom edge of that gas tank. And that's what I'm welding these upright mounts to. So I've got two of them. It's mocked up on this side and then two on the other side. And then I'll be able to lift that tank straight up and weld it in place. Okay, so I've spot welded those upright mounts. Oh, and realized this old man is not designed to do this anymore. Very troublesome access points, but I got them. Right up in here, got a little focus. So all I did was just on this outside corner right now, so everything can go straight up. And it's not too heavy of a bead all the way around. So I'll use the floor jack here and press it and go try to put it right smack dab in the middle, lift it up evenly, figure out the height that I want the gas tank to be. I've got a little bit of room, you can see, between the top of the tank right now and the top of that axle. So I got about 2 inches, I think, but I'm going to measure it and see what I get. All right, so I just got the wheels and tires back on the back. I set it off of the jack stands and filled up the airbags so that I have an approximate ride height whenever this is driving down the road. And then the way I've got it spaced right now, I've got some wood shims holding up the tank evenly all the way around, and then I'm approximately that much off from being level, needing to raise the front of the tank that much to achieve relative level. It's never going to be perfect, but at least I can give it a shot and see if I can, how close I can get to it. To give you an idea of where it's setting in the frame, if you come down, you can't see the bottom of that tank until you get way down here. So it's actually very flush across the bottom of that, visually kind of aligned as close as possible to the bottom edge of that frame. So I think it came out really good. And after cutting those shims on both sides, I got it kind of close to level. And it's close enough. So close enough for now, because it's still going to move by the time I get it tack welded in place anyway. So I'll play around, double check a few measurements about width or outside edge of the frame to these. But ultimately, that's about where it's going to sit. Okay, after a lot more crawling underneath there for these old knees and back, Finally got the uprights kind of spot welded in place. Things are kind of moving around a little bit. This one I had to cut off and then remount because the gap had become bigger. This thing is definitely shifted a little bit, kind of back over there. But there's going to be a little bit of wiggle room whenever I put the other bed on. But ultimately, just show you, I got some spot welds down there. Let's see. But that's it. That's it for the evening. I got dinner and family time.